Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you won't miss our future videos. Let's get started. What is DAX?
DAX, Data Analysis Expressions, is a formula language used in Power BI, Excel Power Pivot, and SQL Server Analysis Services (SSAS) tabular models. It is designed to work with relational data and perform calculations, aggregations, and data manipulation.
What is the difference between calculate and calculate table functions in DAX?
Calculate is used to modify or filter the context of the current query, whereas calculate table is used to modify or filter the context of the tables in the current query. In simpler terms, calculate is like applying a filter to a specific formula, whereas calculate table is like creating a new table based on specific filters. In this example, calculate is used to calculate the sum of sales amount only for the North region. The context for the filter is modified within the calculate function.
What is a measure in Power BI?
A measure is a DAX expression that returns a single scalar value. Measures are used for aggregations, calculations, and defining KPIs, key performance indicators, in Power BI. Here, total sales is a measure that calculates the sum of sales amount from the sales table.
What is the difference between a calculated column and a measure in Power BI?
A calculated column is a column added to a table that computes a value for each row using a DAX expression. A measure is a calculation that is performed on aggregated data, typically across multiple rows. In the calculated column example, a new column called revenue is created in the sales table, multiplying units and unit price for each row. In the measure example, total revenue calculates the sum of the revenue column, providing an aggregated value.
What is the difference between a calculated column and a calculated table in Power BI?
A calculated column adds a new column to an existing table, whereas a calculated table creates a new table with calculated values based on a DAX expression. In the calculated column example, a profit column is added to the sales table, calculating the difference between revenue and cost for each row. In the calculated table example, a new table called Top Customers is created, summarizing total revenue by customer and selecting the top 10 customers.
What is row context and filter context in DAX?
Row context refers to the current row being evaluated in a table or table expression. Filter context refers to the set of filters applied to the data when evaluating a DAX expression. In the revenue calculation, row context is applied as the expression iterates through each row of the sales table to compute revenue. In the total revenue calculation, filter context is applied as the sum function operates within the context of any applied filters, such as slicers or filters on visuals.
What is the all function in DAX?
The all function removes all filters from a specified table or column, returning the entire table or column. In this example, total sales calculates the sum of sales amount without any filters applied to the sales table, as the all function removes any filters on the sales table.
What is the difference between earlier and earliest functions in DAX?
Earlier function refers to a previous row context when iterating over rows in a table, while earliest function returns the first row in a table when used in a filter context. In this example, previous year sales calculates the sum of sales amount for the previous year by referencing the earlier function to get the value of the current row's year and subtracting one.
What is the difference between related and relatable functions in DAX?
Related function returns a single related value from a lookup table, while relatable function returns a table of related values from a related table. In the customer country calculation, related retrieves the country value from the related customer table. In the related orders calculation, Relay table returns a table of orders related to the current row in the context.
What is the difference between a calculated column and a calculated measure?
A calculated column adds a new column to a table, while a calculated measure creates a measure that can be used in visualizations to perform calculations on aggregated data. In the calculated column example, a revenue column is added to the sales table, computing the product of units and unit price for each row. In the calculated measure example, total revenue calculates the sum of the revenue column, providing an aggregated value that can be used in visualizations.
How do you handle errors in DAX expressions?
Errors in DAX expressions can be handled using functions like if error, is error, and if to provide fallback values or alternative calculations when errors occur. In this example, profit margin is calculated by dividing profit by revenue, with if error used to handle potential division by zero errors by returning 0 as the result.
What is the syntax for creating a date table in Power BI using DAX?
A date table in Power BI can be created using the calendar or calendarauto function to generate a range of dates, which can then be enhanced with additional columns like year, month, day, etc. In this example, the calendar function generates a table of dates from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020.
What is the purpose of the summarize function in DAX?
The summarize function is used to create a summary table that groups data based on specified columns and calculates aggregates like sums, counts, and averages. In this example, sales summary creates a summary table grouping sales data by region and calculating the total sales amount for each region.
How do you create a calculated column based on conditions in DAX?
A calculated column based on conditions can be created using the if or switch function to define the condition and the corresponding value for each row. In this example, a new column profitable is added to the sales table, indicating whether each sale is profitable based on the condition that profit is greater than 0.
What is the purpose of the relay table function in DAX?
The relay table function returns a table of related rows from a related table based on the current row context, enabling analysis and calculations across related tables. In this example, related products returns a table of products related to the current row in the context, allowing analysis of product-related data within the context of another table.
How do you calculate year-over-year growth in DAX?
Year-over-year growth can be calculated using DAX by comparing the values of a measure for the current year with the values of the same measure for the previous year. In this example, YoY growth calculates the year-over-year growth of total sales by comparing the sum of sales for the current year with the sum of sales for the previous year.
What is the purpose of the divide function in DAX?
The divide function is used to perform division in DAX while handling potential division by zero errors, allowing for safer and more robust calculations. In this example, profit margin calculates the profit margin by dividing profit by revenue, with divide used to handle potential division by zero errors gracefully.
How do you calculate moving averages in DAX?
Moving averages can be calculated in DAX using functions like averagex or calculate in combination with dates in period or dates between to define the period over which the average is calculated. In this example, moving average calculates the 30-day moving average of sales amount using the averagex function within the specified date range.
What is the purpose of the values function in DAX?
The values function returns a single column table containing the unique values from a column or expression, which can be used for filtering or analysis. In this example, unique regions returns a table of unique regions from the sales table, which can be used for filtering or analyzing sales data by region.
How do you calculate year-to-date, YTD, totals in DAX?
Year-to-date totals can be calculated in DAX by using functions like totalit or datesitted to aggregate values from the beginning of the year up to the current date. In this example, YTD sales calculates the year-to-date total sales amount by summing sales amounts from the beginning of the year up to the current date.
What is context transition in DAX?
Context transition in DAX refers to the process of switching between row context and filter context. Row context is the context for calculations at the row level, while filter context is the context for calculations based on filters applied to the data. In this example, the calculate function transitions from row context to filter context. It calculates the sum of sales amount for customers in the North region by applying the filter condition within the calculate function.
What is the difference between all and all except functions in DAX?
All function removes all filters from the specified table or column, while all except function removes all filters except those specified in the all except function. This example calculates the total sales amount for all regions by removing the filter applied to the region column, while keeping other filters intact.
How do you optimize DAX performance in Power BI?
DAX performance can be optimized by reducing the number of calculated columns, using measures instead of calculated columns where possible, and avoiding expensive DAX functions in calculated columns. This example optimizes the calculation of total sales by using the SUMEX function instead of creating a calculated column. SUMEX iterates through each row in the sales table and calculates the total sales amount dynamically.
What are the benefits of using iterators in DAX expressions?
Iterators in DAX allow for row-by-row calculations and enable complex calculations that involve iterating through tables or table functions. This example calculates the total sales amount by iterating through each row in the sales table and multiplying the quantity by the unit price for each row. It provides flexibility for performing row-level calculations.
How do you handle date calculations in DAX?
Date calculations in DAX can be done using functions like dated, dates between, and calendar to manipulate and analyze date values. This example calculates the year-to-date total sales amount by summing up the sales amount from the beginning of the year up to the current date. It uses the totalit function to handle the date calculation.
What is the SUMEX function in DAX?
The SUMEX function is a mathematical function that takes a table and an expression as its arguments. It evaluates the expression row by row for the filter context applied to the table, and then sums the results. This DAX formula calculates the total sales. It uses the SUMEX function to iterate over each row in the sales table, multiplies the quantity and price for each row, and then sums the results.
What is the RANKX function in DAX?
The RANKX function is a statistical function that returns the rank of an expression evaluated in the current context in the list of values for the expression evaluated for each row in the specified table. This DAX formula calculates the rank of each row in the sales table based on the total sales amount. It uses the RANKX function, which ranks a set of data. The all function is used to consider all the rows in the sales table.
What is the calculate table function in DAX?
The calculate table function is a context modifier function in DAX that evaluates a table expression in a context modified by filters. This DAX formula creates a new table that includes only the sales from the year 2020. It uses the calculate table function to modify the context of the sales table.
What is the filter function in DAX?
The filter function is a filter function in DAX that returns a table that includes only the rows that meet the filter conditions. This DAX formula calculates the total sales for the year 2020. It uses the filter function to create a new table that includes only the sales from the year 2020.
What is the difference between count and counter functions in DAX?
The count function in DAX counts the number of rows in a column that contain numbers, while the counter function counts the number of rows in a column that are not blank. This DAX formula calculates the number of products by counting the number of non-blank rows in the product name column of the products table.
What is the use case of the if function in DAX?
The if function allows you to evaluate whether a given condition is true or false and returns different results accordingly. This code returns result if true if condition is met. Otherwise, it returns result if false.
What is the countrows function in DAX?
Countrans function counts the number of rows returned by a table expression. This code returns the total count of rows present in table.
What is the switch function in DAX?
Switch function allows testing multiple conditional statements against a specific value, returning different results depending on the outcome of each test. This code tests value to test against test 1, test 2, until finding a match, and returns corresponding result. If no match found, default result will be returned.
That wraps up today's video. We hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future videos, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.